everybody's laughing at America.
I have a poll for you that reflects Americans' sense of what's happening in their country. And the results are somewhere in between a beer fart and Steve Bannon's gym shorts.
That's disgusting.
If you voted for Trump and you're currently experiencing buyer's remorse, I have a couple of thoughts I'd like to share with you. First, I really shouldn't say that out loud. But secondly, yeah, pretty much the same.
Tariff, my favorite word.
It's obvious that Trump didn't think this through. Choosing Musk, the richest man in the world, to tell working people barely getting by they have to justify their jobs to him? Whose idea was that?
In a post on X, Musk said federal employees, quote, will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. It is unclear what legal basis Musk has to terminate federal workers if they fail to respond to his request.
And of course, Trump's cabinet looks like an outtake from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, from Boozy Hegseth to the worm-addled brain of Bobby Jr. Even the most dim-witted Trump supporter must be thinking, aren't they supposed to be smarter than me? And Trump voters across America are saying, what about the f***ing eggs, you orange cockwaffle?
It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word.
So these poll numbers will either surprise you or confirm your worst fear, that there's a flailing dotard in the White House. We'll get to that poll in just a second, but first, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's easy. All you have to do is click your ruby slippers together 3 times.
Slippers. Yeah.
And then some flying monkey will bring you a beer. Following James Carville's famous axiom, it's the economy, stupid, the poll numbers you're about to hear make sense. What's frightening, though, is a number of people unwilling to speak the truth to what they know is the truth. It means we're in trouble.
Ruh-roh, the reboot not as well received as the original. Economy is currently good or excellent. Look at this. In April of 2017, it was 40%. Look at where we are in February of 2025, just half that level. 20%. My goodness gracious. The term one high was 63% of Americans in February of 2020 thought the economy was excellent or good. This 20% we have currently going on right now is fewer Americans saying the economy is excellent or good than at any point during Trump's first term. This is not a good sign, Kate Baldwin.
J.D. Vance said last week, you got to give them time, even though that's not what they promised in the campaign. They said they bring prices down day one. But what is the view of the future economy, then?
Yeah, so this is the current economy. How about the future economy? Is the economy getting worse or better? And all I can say is, yikes. Yikes. Again, compare it to where we were in the first term at this point, April of 2017, 53%. The majority said it was getting better. How about now in February of 2025? The majority say it's getting worse. 59% compared to just 35% who say it's getting better. Worse is higher now than at any point in Trump's first term pre-COVID. This number, to me, is much more worrisome. Perhaps the worst number I've seen for Trump on the economy, because it says even if the economy now isn't great, they also project that it's only going to get worse from here. This is a big, big yikes.
And fold in inflation, just like the general views on inflation.
Yeah, okay. So I think the question is, what's exactly cooking here? What is going on? There's this whole idea that Trump was going to bring down inflation, right, Kate? So what are Americans actually saying? Are Google searches for inflation going down or going up? They're going up. They're up 123% from February of 2017. And more than that, perhaps even more important, they're up 23% from last month. Americans' fears about inflation are not going away. They are as interested in it as they were by the end of the Joe Biden administration. And the bottom line is they're far more interested in it than they were at any point during Donald Trump's first term. As I said at the beginning, the reboot, the sequel, is not being anywhere near as well received as the original when it comes to Donald Trump and the economy.
Okay, a couple things. As you will see, all of the metrics for a strong economy are falling. And here's the kicker. Everyone old enough to tie their shoes saw it coming.
Well, we'll go into that. They all say, speak about the economy, speak about the economy.
When a car gets imported from overseas and a tariff gets paid on it, that added cost gets passed on to you, the consumer. The Honda sedan might have cost $25,000 before the tariff. Now it's going to cost $28,000. You're going to pay it. And you can make an argument about why that might be good policy for other reasons, helping domestic car production. What you cannot do, absolutely, is argue with a straight face that the tariff makes cars cheaper. No, it does the opposite. You pay more for the car because you pay the tax. Trump says tariffs will generate trillions of dollars, and maybe they will. That's trillions of dollars more you will pay for imported goods so producers can pay the government. A tariff is a tax on you.
While Pouty Funkwinkle attacks Biden for leaving him strong economic numbers, and they were, conservative economists point to Biden's reluctance to push the Fed to lower rates. But the post-pandemic inflation wasn't Biden's fault. It was Powell's decision to not lower them, and the only voices supporting lowering rates belong to those institutions for whom such actions would mean tremendous profits. Not really that different from the 2008 financial crisis.
Stop immigration and force migrants to leave in terms of wages.
Unless you're Hamilton, I'm kind of against it.
Isn't that going to be inflationary?
Of course.
And now Trump is championing tariffs and deportations with the full knowledge they will make lives harder for the disappearing lower and middle class, not to mention risking another recession. It's all tied together.
Tariffs. To me, I think it's the most beautiful word in the dictionary. More beautiful than love.
So what has Trump accomplished? Dozens of executive orders like renaming the Gulf? What about inflation? What about deportation? What about Gaza?
I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
Now, of course, every American sees Trump's crazy shit. I mean, it's his signature.
Reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats.
There has to be some form of punishment. Don't worry about voting. The voting, we get plenty of votes.
But there are millions of Americans who relied on the federal government, either directly or indirectly, and they're feeling the pinch.
Dateline Richmond. Governor Glenn Youngkin said today that the state is preparing an aid package for Virginians losing their jobs in the Trump administration's gutting of the federal workforce. Republicans just eating it in their home districts and their home states, as their party's leader does things that are devastating to those states and to those constituents. And just seeing that in states all over the country is a lot of things. It gives me many, many feelings of many different kinds. But as a matter of political science, it's also important to watch in terms of what kinds of constraints this president, this administration might ever feel.
And of course, who signed up Elon Apartheid to force federal workers to defend their jobs to a man whom the federal government is paying billions to blow up rockets and cars to catch on fire? Bottom line, you don't need a poll to see when the economy is bad. It's not brain surgery or rocket science. It's easy. If you don't tax the Fortune 1000 corporations or the thousands of billionaires in the U.S., you cut trillions from the budget. So you can do one of two things. You raise taxes on the middle class, which is in effect what inflation is, or you cut the size of government. Now, if you're going to fire federal workers, it'd be nice to have someone who knew what the fuck they were doing. But President Musk and the First Lady are cutting people from the most important positions imaginable. Let's start with the FAA.
This is the latest in a string of plane accidents this year.
We want to bring in Sonica Dunke now. And Sonica, it all started with that Washington, D.C. crash between a Black Hawk helicopter and jet.
And 67 people were killed during that crash near Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. This is the single deadliest plane crash in the U.S. in a generation. 2 days later, a medical transport jet crashed into a residential area in northeast Philadelphia, killing 6 people on board and 1 person on the ground. And earlier this month, 10 people were killed when a commuter flight crashed on sea ice here in Alaska. There have been several other issues with aircraft as well. An Avelo flight headed to Orlando last night was diverted to Knoxville. Here's a live lookout to MCO, where that plane did eventually land late last night. Officials say the diversion was out of an abundance of caution after a small crack was found in the outer pane of the windshield. Now the question weighing on everyone's minds, should I be worried if I'm flying?
Now, yeah, these are mostly coincidences, but when you start firing people and the person firing them is doing it based on the person's politics, how many dead people on the DC crash were Dems or MAGA? And then there's the FDA or the CDC or NIH.
Elon Musk's demand that all federal employees justify their jobs in 5 bullet points or else is facing pushback from within.
And of course, the CIA and the FBI, which features these two mopes, who instead of protecting our country from terrorism, want to arrest Morning Joe.
I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops.
We're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice.
So what you got going on here is the personification of idiocy, irony, and entropy, where Johnny Fatfingers protects the wealthy and their gold toilets while grifting his poorly educated base of slack-jawed, ignorant rednecks who are the very marks that cannot see the con. You know, there's an old joke that 80% of Americans say that 50% of the time they don't believe the polls. But they should believe this. 100% of this time, this guy will F you good.
Damn right.
I'm as mad as hell.
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
Tick-tock.
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy. I'm Chip Franklin.